Okay, let's dive right into this. Imagine a book, but not just your everyday run-of-the-mill book. Imagine a manuscript written entirely in a language that literally does not exist anywhere else on Earth. A book that's absolutely packed with illustrations of bizarre plants that no human being has ever actually seen in nature. For centuries, this thing has completely baffled the world's most brilliant minds. We're talking cryptologists, elite linguists, seasoned historians. They've all thrown themselves at this text, and every single one of them has hit a brick wall. This is the Voynich Manuscript, which is widely considered the most famous unsolved historical puzzle in the entire world. But here is where the mystery gets even deeper. What if I told you that this legendary puzzle is actually an incomplete crime scene? To really get our heads around this mystery, we first need to look at the physical artifact itself. The Voynich Manuscript, well, as it exists today at least, is made up of about 240 pages. And these aren't made of paper, by the way. They're made of vellum, which is basically prepared animal skin. Through modern radiocarbon dating, researchers have actually been able to firmly pinpoint the creation of this vellum right back to the 15th or early 16th century. It's just this stunning, tangible piece of history. It's meticulously crafted, hand-bound, and literally filled end-to-end with these vibrant, swirling ink and wash illustrations. Honestly, it was a massive undertaking of medieval craftsmanship. But here is the startling twist of our historical whodunit. When you closely examine the physical binding of this centuries-old codex, you discover something pretty shocking. Almost 30 pages are completely missing, and they weren't just lost to time or, natural decay. The evidence in the binding actually suggests they were deliberately and forcefully ripped out of the book.
Which brings us to part one, the hunt for the missing pages.
We actually know exactly where these physical voids are, all thanks to the manuscript's centuries-old numbering system. The numbers just abruptly jump from page 12 directly to 13, and then later from 59 straight to 60. But most astonishingly, there's a massive gap where an entire, super lengthy chapter seems to have been completely removed. It's kind of like finding a highly secured vault deep in a secret archive, only to realize the biggest, most important safe deposit box has just been totally torn from the wall. Now, to even begin to comprehend what kind of unearthly information might have been lost on those ripped out pages, we really need to look at what was left behind. The surviving 240 pages basically fall into 6 incredibly bizarre categories. First, we've got a botanical section, featuring 113 entirely unidentifiable plants. Then there are astronomical and astrological charts. After that is the biological section, and this one is truly bizarre. It features illustrations of miniature nude women just kind of swimming or wading through these highly complex networks of tubes and green fluids. We also have elaborate cosmological medallions, a pharmaceutical section showing medicinal herbs in strange jars, and finally, pages of dense, unbroken text that really just look like recipes.
Think about the artistic interpretations of the manuscript's flora for a second. People often call them botanical ghost plants. Honestly, they drive botanists and researchers absolutely up the wall because, they look vaguely familiar yet completely impossible at the same time. They have these strange, fleshy textures, intertwining roots that look almost like tentacles, and they just sort of seem to float in a void. So it really makes you wonder, if this is what they left in the book, what on earth was depicted on the pages that someone felt absolutely compelled to rip out?
You can really see that exact tension when you look closer at the details. Take the plant that vaguely resembles a Venus flytrap, but suddenly it features this strange, hairy, almost mammalian top. These illustrations completely blur the line between real, terrestrial flora and straight-up magical illusion. And it's exactly this surreal blending of science and fantasy that led historical figures to firmly believe this book held profound and maybe even highly dangerous magical secrets. Moving on to part 2, the long trail of owners. So we have to ask ourselves, who actually had the opportunity to alter this book? Over the centuries, this manuscript passed through the hands of a pretty wild cast of characters, eccentric scholars, desperate alchemists, powerful monarchs. Any single one of them might have discovered something in those pages that they wanted to hide or protect, or, maybe even sell. Tracing the known chain of custody is fascinating. We believe it may have been owned by the English astrologer John Dee in the late 1500s, before passing to the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II around 1600. From there, it went to a whole series of Bohemian scholars and alchemists like Barish and Marchi in the mid-1600s, who eventually sent it off to the famous Jesuit scholar Athanasius Kircher down in Rome in 1666. And then, just nothing. The book seemingly vanished into thin air for a massive 200-year black hole. until an antiquarian book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich claimed to have discovered it in a Jesuit library in Italy, way later, in 1912. Today, it rests safely at the Lion K Library at Yale University. To really grasp the psychological grip this book had on its owners, just listen to the sheer desperation of 17th century alchemist Georg Barisch. He spent literally years staring at this impossible text, just hoping against hope to unlock some ancient alchemical secrets. Completely defeated by it, he begged the famous scholar Athanasius Kircher for help, writing, "Help me. Decipher this book, I beg you." It was a total obsession. Just imagine being utterly obsessed with the puzzle that you deeply know you will never, ever solve. So, getting back to the crucial point, who actually committed the crime of removing those pages? There are two leading, pretty intensely competing theories, and we're going to look at both of them impartially in this explainer. On one side, some people suspect Wilfrid Voynich himself. See, when he found the book in 1912, he was a man in some seriously deep financial debt. Some researchers theorize he might have ripped out the most beautiful, elaborate fold-out pages to sell them privately to wealthy collectors for a quick payout. On the flip side, there's the theory of a massive monastic cover-up. If this book contained heretical scientific ideas, pagan magic, or terrifying apocalyptic visions, well, a pious monk centuries ago might have simply burned the offending pages to protect the world. Or actually, maybe just to protect the church. Which leads perfectly into part 3, Emperor Rudolph's bizarre cabinet of curiosities. To truly get to the heart of this mystery, we've got to talk about the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II. This guy was utterly consumed by the occult, alchemy, and pretty much anything unknown. He was famously known for his Kunstkammer, or Cabinet of Curiosities. This wasn't just some dusty shelf. It was an encyclopedic collection of Renaissance objects, natural history oddities, and weird historical relics. These weren't just museums as we know them today. They were grand, symbolic displays intended to demonstrate the emperor's absolute magnificence and his total control over the microcosm of the world. Rudolph's collection was completely unrivaled. We're talking clockwork automata, alleged unicorn horns, and super exotic biological specimens. And Rudolph? He was absolutely willing to pay dearly for the ultimate curiosities. Historical records actually indicate he dropped an absolute fortune on the Voynich Manuscript, specifically 600 gold ducats. To put that into perspective, that was a truly staggering sum of money for a single book back then. Why would he pay that much? Simply because Rudolph deeply, truly believed the manuscript was the secret work of the legendary 13th century friar and philosopher Roger Bacon. Bacon was a man heavily rumored to possess magical and highly advanced scientific knowledge. So for Emperor Rudolph II, this completely unreadable book was basically the crown jewel of his entire collection. It perfectly fit right into his royal world of alchemists, astrologers, and strange artifacts. It was, in and of itself, a microcosm of a bizarre, unreadable world. But here's the thing, Rudolph was also famously deeply paranoid. If he genuinely believed the book contained immense, world-altering power, could he have been the one to quietly remove the most crucial pages? Maybe hiding them away deep in the imperial vaults just so that no rival could ever access Roger Bacon's ultimate secrets? And that brings us to part 4, the vanished secret knowledge. What was literally so incredibly valuable or so terrifyingly dangerous that someone permanently altered this artifact? Researchers have been debating this for decades. Theory 1 is that the missing chapter contained the master deciphering key. Perhaps it was quite literally the instruction manual on how to read the complex cipher, and someone stole it just to ensure the book's secrets remained hidden forever. Theory 2 leans into the apocalyptic warning. Much like we discussed with the monastic cover-up, perhaps the missing pages laid out a terrifying prophecy that was just deemed far too dangerous for human eyes. And then there's Theory 3, practical recipes for the alien plants. Let's actually zero in on that practical recipe theory for a second, because honestly, it is absolutely fascinating. When you look at the ghostly plant visualizations throughout the text, you start seeing details like stems that look eerily like reaching hands, and these strange, super rigid tubular structures. The entire Voynich manuscript is packed to the brim with pharmaceutical jars and botanical diagrams. So what if it really is just a highly advanced medical or alchemical textbook? And what if the missing pages held the actual practical instructions, the precise boiling temperatures, the chemical mixtures, the exact step-by-step cooking instructions on how to actually prepare these unearthly plants? I mean, think about the wild, multi-leaved ghost plants with roots that look exactly like grasping claws. Just imagine for 1 second having those lost pages in your hands right now. Imagine finally being able to translate the text and actually brewing an elixir, a medicine, or a salve from those ancient instructions, a recipe that has literally been waiting patiently for over 600 years to be prepared. What would it even do? Would it heal you? Would it poison you? Or would it do something else entirely? And here's why this whole thing actually matters to us today. These missing pages, they aren't a myth. They are physical, tangible pieces of 15th century vellum, covered in strange, swirling ink, and they are out there somewhere. Because of that massive 200-year gap in the book's history, those pages could have ended up quite literally anywhere in the world. They could be sitting in a dusty cardboard box in some forgotten European archive, tucked inside the cover of a larger antique book in a random secondhand shop, or, incredibly, they could be sitting right now in an old trunk in your very own attic. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. Take a look around your own homes, your local antique stores, your family heirlooms. Who actually tore out those pages? What forbidden or miraculous knowledge was written on them? And where are they hiding right now? The key to the world's absolute greatest puzzle is out there, just waiting to be found. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep exploring.